My name's William Jenkins, a 26-year-old with decent looks and a stable job. Sunday mornings are for indulging in a second cup of coffee while perusing the Sunday paper. Today, however, my tranquility was disrupted by a striking image in the paper. It was a large two-column photo that seemed to captivate my attention entirely. As I gazed at the picture, my mind drifted into a sea of contemplation. It had been 2 years since our paths diverged, yet the sight of her face still stirred a pang of ache within me. Who could evoke such a visceral reaction from me, you might wonder? Well, that's a tale worth telling. Back when I was 23, I found myself living and working in a quaint college town adorned with 4 educational institutions. Among them were 2 all-girls colleges, a state university, and a sizable business college. It was a landscape teeming with vibrant youth, what some might aptly dub a target-rich environment. Among my circle was Stephen, a close friend navigating the intermission between semesters while toiling away at our workplace to fund his education. He, too, was a fraternity brother at the state school. Together, Stephen and I often played the role of each other's wingmen on countless escapades. Our objective was clear: to indulge in intimate encounters with as many of the young women as possible. With our skills finely honed, our targets rarely eluded us. Stephen and I found ourselves at a lively sorority mixer, reveling in the atmosphere of free-flowing alcohol, complimentary snacks, and a plethora of codes. Engaging in what could only be described as a scouting mission, I scanned the room to identify the fortunate candidate for the evening. During that phase of my life, I must admit, I possessed a rather inflated ego. In my mind, I was the epitome of charm, a veritable deity's gift to women. With my suave demeanor, attractive appearance, and self-assured attitude, I found success with many of the college girls. Yet, sincerity and depth in relationships were lacking in my character at that time. But back then, such shallowness seemed acceptable to me. I had my sights set on a promising prospect, a cute, petite redhead, when Stephen intervened, redirecting my attention towards a group of girls on the outskirts of the party. They'd observed the festivities from a distance, not fully engaging in the revelry. Among them stood a striking example of the quintessential college code, Leona Morris. She exuded an air of poise, dressed impeccably, possessed a desirable figure, and boasted a captivatingly beautiful face. Curious, I inquired about her identity. "That's Leona Morris," Stephen informed me. "She's off limits. Attends Williams College, and rumor has it, she never repeats a date. The few guys who've taken her out swear she's either gay or as cold as ice. None have even made it to holding hands, and you won't either." "She's not gay," I countered. "Observe how she eyes the men passing by. She's definitely checking them out. I think she's just cautious and discerning. She won't easily commit to just any guy." "Wow, Dr. Phil, you've got her all figured out without even exchanging a word," Stephen teased. "You're quite the mind reader, aren't you? Or maybe just full of it." "Know any of the other girls in her group?" I inquired. "Yeah, the blonde is Monica Robinson. She's a fellow student at like me. We had a few classes together," Stephen replied. "Went on a couple of dates, but there wasn't much chemistry, so we decided to stay friends." "Why do you ask?" "I'm going to prove Leona isn't what people think. Your job is to introduce me to Monica. I'll handle the rest." "Okay, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment, William," Stephen cautioned as we approached the group. Engaging in pleasantries, Stephen greeted Monica, initiating a brief conversation before introducing me. I exchanged greetings with Monica and the other girls, though my attention lingered everywhere but on Leona. Despite being part of the group, she seemed conspicuously ignored by me. Even when she spoke, I barely acknowledged her, swiftly diverting the conversation back to Monica and the others. For instance, when Leona mentioned attending Williams, I merely nodded and refocused on chatting with Monica and company, leaving her unacknowledged. It was evident she was growing increasingly irritated by my disregard. As we bid farewell to the group and began our journey home, Stephen couldn't hide his disbelief. "You've certainly made an impression on Leona," he remarked, shaking his head. "Ignoring her completely and cutting her off whenever she tried to join the conversation. I see your plan. You're banking on making her so frustrated that she'll date you just to gain your attention. Brilliant strategy. Oh, you have little faith. My plan is unfolding just as intended, I countered confidently. Every guy Leona encounters showers her with compliments and attempts to make advances. She's not accustomed to being disregarded. This will pique her interest. Leona will start wondering, why isn't this guy pursuing me? What's wrong with me? She won't be able to resist. Eventually, she'll come after me. It's foolproof, I confidently asserted to Stephen. Stephen chuckled at my optimism before offering a simple good luck. Could you do me a favor? Find out more about her for me. Where she eats, grabs coffee, shops, anything you can gather. Will you help? I requested. Of course, buddy. I'll gather intel from some of the sorority sisters and have it for you in a couple of days, Stephen replied. Grateful for his assistance, I headed home. 2 days later, Stephen provided me with a comprehensive report on Leona's whereabouts and habits, allowing me to set my plan in motion. Starting the following evening and every available moment thereafter, I strategically positioned myself wherever she happened to be. If Leona was at the coffee shop, I'd casually enter, order, and leave. If she was at the sandwich shop, I'd grab a bite. I even made an effort to be around when she was out shopping. This groundwork persisted for 3 weeks, not every time or every day, but frequently enough for her to take notice. That was the plan. The first meaningful interaction occurred at the coffee shop. As we both queued up at the counter to place our orders, I turned and gave her a subtle nod, pretending to glance past her at something else. She returned the gesture with a smile. I glanced at her once more and initiated the conversation. Hi, I believe we've crossed paths before, but I'm drawing a blank on your name. I'm William Jenkins. I'm Leona Morris. We met at the Delta Zeta mixer last month, she replied. Yes, I recall now. You were with Monica Robinson. Sorry, I'm not the best with names, I admitted. After grabbing our coffee, Leona extended an invitation to join her, to which I hesitated momentarily for effect before accepting and joining her at a patio table. Leona offered me a small smile before questioning, "What's going on, William?" "What do you mean?" I feigned innocence. "Come on, William. You've practically been shadowing me for the past 3 weeks. Everywhere I go, there you are. Same coffee shop, same diners, even the mall. Don't try to deny it. It's far too frequent to be mere coincidence. You're following me. Why?" she pressed. I met her gaze and then confessed, explaining that it was my strategy to capture her attention. "Why?" she inquired once more. "How much should I divulge?" At this juncture, honesty seemed like the best policy. Well, perhaps not the complete truth. "Leona, I genuinely want to get to know you, take you out, and spend time together. I've noticed how every guy who meets you practically trips over themselves trying to win your attention. They shower you with compliments about your looks, your style, anything to flatter you. They're all aiming for more than just one date, but I don't want to blend into that crowd. So I devised this plan to pique your interest in me," I explained earnestly. Leona seemed taken aback. "William, that's probably the most unconventional approach I've ever heard," she replied. "Yeah, it's a bit out there, huh? Well, I won't bother you anymore. I apologize if I've come off as creepy. I promise I'm not some kind of psycho," I reassured her. "No, I'm not angry. In fact, I'm flattered. No one has ever gone to such lengths just to get to know me. Usually, they ask me out, and if I'm interested, I agree. But they're all the same. They see me as pretty and nothing more. Guys rarely bother to delve into my thoughts, goals, or opinions. But you're different," she admitted, handing me a card with her address. "Pick me up at 7 o'clock for dinner." "Yes, my lady," I replied with a grin, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Mission accomplished. As I drove to pick up Leona later that evening, I had a serious chat with myself. "Okay," I thought, "you've made it through the door. Don't blow it by being like all the other guys she's dated and dismissed. Stay focused, no matter how stunning she looks. Engage with her, pay attention, and make her believe you genuinely care about her beliefs, philosophies, and aspirations. To keep her, you have to stand out from the crowd." I pulled up to the apartment building, and to my surprise, Leona swiftly made her way to the truck and hopped in before I could even step out to open her door. We headed to a cozy Italian mom and pop restaurant I had discovered, a place far from the usual college hangouts, offering a more intimate ambience. It turned out to be a delightful evening, filled with engaging conversations on various topics. But as the night progressed, something unexpected occurred. According to the plan, I was supposed to feign interest in her interests, but as our time together drew to a close, I realized that my feelings were genuine. This girl, Leona, was extraordinary, at least in my eyes. It was a daunting realization for someone who had been known to play the field. I found myself wanting more from her, not just as another conquest, but because I genuinely liked her. Sitting in the car parked in front of her place, I made a decision to come clean. I wasn't sure how she would react to the unvarnished truth, but if I wanted this to go anywhere, I knew I had to be honest. "Leona, there's something I need to tell you," I began, steeling myself for her response. What I said earlier today about not wanting to be just another guy, that was true, but it was also part of a plan I had concocted. However, after spending this evening with you, I've realized that my desire to get to know you and spend time together isn't just a part of the plan, it's the truth. I didn't know it this morning, but now I do. I'm sorry for misleading you. I've discovered that you're much more than just a pretty face, and I genuinely want to spend more time with you. I guess I messed up. Thank you for dinner, and I suppose I'll see you around. I felt utterly defeated. Here was a girl who had genuinely sparked my interest, and yet my manipulative schemes had pushed her away. What a fool I had been. Oh my, when you start talking, there's no stopping you," Leona remarked, a hint of amusement in her voice. That was quite the speech, but what's even nicer is that I think you genuinely mean it. You've been different tonight, different than I expected. I looked at her, perplexed. What do you mean? I did some digging, she confessed. You have a bit of a reputation in our little community, William. You're known as quite the player, and apparently you're rather good at it. Most of the girls I spoke to didn't have any complaints, except for the fact that you steer clear of relationships. And I know you ignored me at the mixer on purpose. It was all part of your plan. Oh, hell, I muttered, feeling a pang of regret. No one has ever gone to such lengths just to meet me and ask me out, Leona continued, her tone softening. It's incredibly flattering. Let's see where this takes us, but no more games, okay? And so began our time together. Almost every night of the week, we were inseparable. Dinners, movies, college parties. It was a whirlwind. Throughout it all, my feelings for Leona deepened. I couldn't say for certain if it was love, but it was definitely more than just a strong liking. However, the frequency of our outings began to strain my finances. I couldn't afford to keep up with 20 to 25 dates a month. When I declined Leona's invitation for the third time, she wanted to know what was going on. Remember our agreement when we started dating, William? No more bullshit. What's going on? You've turned down 3 dates in the last 10 days. Talk to me, Leona demanded, her tone firm. I'm sorry, Leona. It's a pride thing, I guess. I simply can't afford to take you out as often as we've been going. I'm just an average guy here, and my paycheck isn't exactly hefty. After covering expenses, there isn't much left. It's not that I don't want to see you, I just can't afford lavish outings every night. I'm sorry, I explained, feeling somewhat embarrassed by my financial situation. Leona took my hand, offering a reassuring smile. You silly man. Why didn't you say something earlier? We don't need to spend money every time we go out. There are plenty of free or inexpensive activities we can enjoy together, museums, galleries, walks by the river, and more. We can even have quiet evenings at your place or mine, just watching TV. You don't need to spend money every time. I guess I was ashamed of not having much money, I admitted. Here's the plan, Leona declared. We'll go out for dinner or a movie twice a week. You pay one time, and I'll pay the next. On the other nights, we'll enjoy the free stuff and simply spend time together. No arguments, that's how it'll be. Unless, and I just thought of this, you actually want a break from me, she teased. No way. I'd spend every night with you if I could. I really want to be with you, I affirmed. And that's how we arranged it. Shortly after, as we strolled by the river one evening, everything seemed to align perfectly. That night, right there on the riverbank, we made love under the stars. It was almost a perfect night, if not for the persistent mosquitoes. We hadn't noticed the bites until we were in the shower together at her place later. That evening marked the first time I spent the entire night at her apartment, but certainly not the last. The following morning, as I reluctantly left Leona in bed to head to work, I encountered an unexpected obstacle. My truck refused to start. Hastily returning to her apartment to call a taxi, Leona inquired about the issue. I explained the situation regarding my truck and my plans to summon a cab. However, she swiftly intervened. "No need for that," she declared, tossing me her car keys. "You can take my car. It's in the basement garage, space 27. After work, swing by your place to grab some clothes and then come back here. You can shower and get ready at my place. It's my turn to choose the venue and my treat tonight. I'll see you around 5:30. Now hurry, you'll be late," she urged, planting a kiss on my lips. As I made my way to the basement garage to retrieve her car, I couldn't help but wonder what type of vehicle she owned. I hoped it wouldn't be one of those tiny, compact cars, but I supposed beggars couldn't be choosers. To my surprise and utter disbelief, parked in space 27 was a brand new Corvette convertible, just a year old. And to top it off, it was in my favorite color for a vet, candy apple red. I briefly entertained the idea that I might have mistaken the car, but the license plate read Glory 1. It was indeed Leona's car. Holy shit. When I arrived at work in the Corvette, Steven and the rest of the guys were understandably curious. I explained that it belonged to Leona. "I'll admit it, you're the master, buddy," Steven joked. "But seriously, how did you manage to get her car?" "My truck wouldn't start, and she told me to take her car. I had no idea she even owned a car, let alone a Corvette," I replied, still in disbelief. I basked in the envy of my coworkers and walked a little taller that day, knowing I was driving Leona's Corvette. It was an exhilarating feeling, and after work, when I met Leona for dinner, she casually mentioned that I could use her car whenever I wanted since she didn't use it much. Suddenly, I had a Corvette at my disposal. It was a significant upgrade from the dive I had been living in, so I basically moved into Leona's luxurious apartment. We agreed to split the costs of our dates, but it seemed that whenever we dined at fancy and expensive restaurants, it was always Leona's turn to foot the bill. I couldn't figure out how she managed to arrange that. On top of that, she started buying me gifts. I tried to protest, telling her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted that she enjoyed buying things for me. Leona went as far as purchasing 4 or 5 suits for me to wear to the high-class parties she was invited to. Each suit cost around $500, a considerable sum. They were undoubtedly stylish garments. During a Sunday afternoon picnic, I finally mustered up the courage to express my discomfort about accepting all the gifts and letting her cover the expenses of our extravagant outings. "Don't you want me to be happy, William?" she countered. "Of course, I want you to be happy, Leona," I assured her. "It makes me happy to give you things. I enjoy going to those fancy places, especially with you," she admitted. "Leona, how can you afford all of this?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I'm attending school on a full scholarship, and I have a modest trust fund to cover expenses," she explained. "It's not much, but combined with the scholarship, it's enough to allow me to enjoy myself. Please, William, don't feel uncomfortable. Let me be happy." Her sincerity was evident, and I couldn't help but relent. If I had been a man of principles, I would have declined Leona's gifts, refused to use her car, and found my own place to live instead of enjoying her plush apartment. But 2 things held me back from acting on those principles. Firstly, I wanted Leona to be happy, and if her happiness involved showering me with gifts, I was willing to accept them. Secondly, I found myself enjoying the pampering. I was thoroughly enjoying my time with Leona. Not only did I get to drive a Corvette, receive lavish gifts, and dine at fancy establishments, but I was doing it all with her. My feelings were evolving from mere liking to something closer to love. She seemed to possess all the qualities I could ever want in a partner. As I contemplated the source of Leona's wealth, her car, the gifts, and the money spent on our dates, I decided to do a little online research to uncover more information. To my surprise, I discovered that Liana wasn't just well off. She was immensely wealthy, with a family fortune stemming from her father and uncle's ownership of the largest stock and pet feed company in the country. According to my findings, the company was worth over $50 million, and Liana was the sole heir to this substantial fortune. My girlfriend was in Harris. Learning about her wealth didn't change my feelings for her. I was already falling in love with her before I knew about the money. If it didn't bother her, it certainly didn't bother me. We continued living together, enjoying each other's company and indulging in life's luxuries for 8 months. Then, one Saturday morning, my world came crashing down. Having just finished my shower and convinced Leona to get out of bed, we were preparing for a picnic with our friends later in the day, conscious that time was of the essence after staying out late the night before. As I slid into my jeans, the doorbell rang, interrupting our morning routine. The man at the door inquired, "Is Leona at home?" "Yeah, she's in the shower. Can I help you?" I responded. "You must be William," he remarked. "Could you tell her I'm here, please?" "Sure. Who are you?" I asked. "I'm Tristan Brooks, her fiancé," he replied. I invited him inside and offered to inform Leona of his presence. Despite trying to conceal it, I was taken aback. Her fiancé? What on earth? Entering the bathroom, I found Leona just stepping out of the shower. She greeted me with a kiss and suggested we skip the picnic and return to bed. "Leona, there's a guy named Tristan Brooks in the living room. He wants to see you, and he claims to be your fiancé." "What's going on, honey?" I inquired. "Oh, she muttered. "Get dressed and take him to the coffee bar downstairs. I'll call you when I'm ready." "Leona, what the hell? Your fiancé." "I think we need to talk," I pressed. "I know, but right now I need to get dressed. I will explain everything to you later," she assured me. Returning to the living room, I relayed Leona's message to Tristan and escorted him to the coffee shop on the main floor. My mind was reeling, unsure of how to react. He looked at me with a sense of understanding. "I know all about you, William, so don't start freaking out," Tristan began. "Leona's dad and I have been aware of her little romance for some time. We thought it was time to put an end to it. Leona and I will get married, but she keeps delaying it. She's been involved with 3 guys, including you, in the last 2 years. If it's any consolation, you've lasted twice as long as anyone else. Why do you put up with that? I mean, she's your fiancée. Don't you care that she lives with other men?" I questioned. "Well, you're the only one she's ever been intimate with or moved in with. She must care a lot about you. That's why we decided to put a stop to your affair," he explained. "Look, William, you seem like a pretty decent guy, so I'll give you a heads up. You can parlay this breakup into a large sum of money. I am authorized to offer you $5,000 to just walk away," Tristan proposed. I couldn't believe it. They were offering me a substantial sum of money to break up with Leona. I stared at the floor for a moment, my mind spinning with uncertainty. What should I do? Before I met Leona, given my past as a player, I would have likely taken the money and run, but the problem was I was falling in love with her. I'd rather have her, money or no money. My cell phone rang, and it was Leona asking me to send Tristan up to her place. She assured me she'd talk to me afterward, noticing my hesitation and promising it would only take 20 to 30 minutes. Reluctantly, I sent Tristan up to her and waited anxiously, wondering if my life was about to be turned upside down. It was 27 minutes later when Tristan emerged from the elevator and approached me. "I'm leaving, William. Please consider taking the money. You deserve it for what you're going through. Leona wants you to come up now. Good luck, William," he said before departing. I entered the elevator, feeling a mix of emotions. Leona was waiting with the door open when I arrived. She greeted me with a sad smile and a hug, leaving me uncertain about what to do or say. We settled onto the couch, and Leona began to speak. "William, I'm truly sorry. I never meant to mislead you or hurt you. Please believe that," she started. "So, I'm history, is that it, Leona?" I asked, feeling a surge of anger and fear. "You were meant to be just a distraction for me, William, but you somehow found your way into my heart. I may even love you, but we have to end this." I need to fulfill my duty to my family and go home. Please don't hate me. I've genuinely developed feelings for you, but it's time for me to leave," she explained, her voice filled with sadness. I sat there in silence as Leona began to pack her belongings. Then she handed me an envelope that felt somewhat heavy, adding one final surprise to the mix. "This is the title and keys to the Corvette. I don't want it around, it would only remind me of you. The keys to the apartment are in there also. The lease is paid for another year, so you might as well make use of it. I know you don't want to take either, but please make use of them and think about me once in a while. Goodbye, William." So here I am, 2 years later, reading the society page about the wedding of the year. Leona Morris and Tristan Brooks were wed at etc. etc. There were several pictures of the happy couple, though Leona didn't appear all that happy. I still have the Corvette, but I no longer live at the apartment we shared. 2 months after Leona left me, I received a letter from Tristan Brooks. Inside was a check for $5,000. I was tempted to cash it for about 0 seconds, but the check was sent back. Across the front, I had written, "Send Leona. Keep your damn money." Leona did her duty as she saw it. I hope she can find some happiness, because I sure haven't been able to. Part 2. The return address on the letter jolted me back in time, bearing the name Leona Brooks, Street Lewis, MO. It had been 4 years since I last heard from her. What could she possibly want now? Hadn't she played enough games with me in the past? 4 years ago, Leona and I had a short-lived thing. I was 24, working in the college town where she was a student, and we met through a mutual friend. I concocted an elaborate plan to win her over, but she saw through it from the start. That's how our relationship began, but it ended abruptly after 8 months when Leona's fiancé showed up at our apartment. I'm William Jenkins, now 28. When Leona and I met, I was a bit of a ladies' man, but she changed all that. Once I met her, no other woman could capture my interest. Leona, heiress to the largest stock and pet food company in the country, didn't draw me in because of her wealth. I only learned about her financial status near the end of our relationship. I believed we were deeply in love and would be together for a long time. However, that illusion shattered when her fiancé, Tristan Brooks, appeared at our doorstep. He revealed that Leona had a history of such affairs, and our relationship came to a screeching halt. After Leona left me, she expressed that she cared for me, maybe even loved me, but she had obligations to fulfill with this Brooks guy. Looking back, it seems like I was just a temporary distraction for her, a boy toy to pass the time. Her fiancé confirmed that I was just one of several guys she had been involved with. Despite the hurt, she left me with parting gifts: expensive suits, a luxury apartment lease, a Corvette, and more. But none of those compared to having Leona herself. 2 years later, seeing the story and pictures of her wedding in the society pages still stung. I hadn't completely moved on from her by then. Her departure left me withdrawn. I went through the motions of eating, sleeping, and working without much joy. The days blurred together, and I rarely went out except for the occasional visit to a coffee bar. Around 3 months after Leona left, I unexpectedly crossed paths with Monica Robinson, a familiar face from the past. Stephen, my coworker, had introduced us before, and Monica was aware of my history with Leona. I hadn't intended to engage with Monica beyond a nod, feeling guilty for using her as a means to get closer to Leona. "Hey William, how are you?" Monica's unexpected greeting caught me off guard. "I haven't seen you around lately. Don't you like us anymore?" "Hello Monica, I guess I don't frequent the same places as before," I replied. "Just because Leona is gone doesn't mean you can't join us at the parties anymore. Stephen and I, along with others, miss having you around," Monica insisted. To be honest, I haven't felt up to it. I'm still reeling from Leona's departure, and I feel remorseful about how I used you, Monica, I confessed, feeling a weight lift off my chest even as I spoke. Monica flashed a reassuring smile. "Don't fret about it. I understood why you wanted Stephen to introduce us. Your gaze kept drifting toward Leona, so I figured out who you were interested in." She chuckled at my surprised expression. "Come on, you can buy the coffee and fill me in on what happened." After grabbing our coffee, Monica linked her arm with mine and guided me to a secluded booth. Over the next hour, we delved into the intricacies of my relationship with Leona. Somewhere amidst our conversation, I felt a glimmer of hope stirring within me. Perhaps there was life beyond Leona after all. As Monica prepared to depart for her dorm, she offered some parting words of wisdom. "I believe Leona made a mistake in leaving you, William. It's time for you to reclaim your life and move forward. Give me a call sometime." With that, she bid me farewell and left, leaving me with a newfound sense of optimism. She was right. I had been wallowing in self-pity like a child who lost his favorite toy. It was time to mature, pull myself together, and move forward with my life. A few days later, I called Monica, and we decided to grab pizza and beer. It turned out to be a thoroughly enjoyable evening. As we spent more time together, our relationship transitioned from mere friendship to something deeper, though I couldn't quite pinpoint when it happened. Despite our growing closeness, I was still living in Leona's apartment, with the lease set to expire in 3 months. It dawned on me, with Monica's gentle nudges, that if I wanted to truly move on, I needed to find a place of my own. Monica had subtly hinted that she wasn't comfortable visiting my current residence, which was a clear indication of its association with my past. So, I rented an apartment above an elderly lady's garage, where I could start afresh. Monica generously helped me make the place feel like home. Additionally, I decided to let go of the Corvette and opted for a Mustang, symbolically shedding the baggage of my past. Over the next 9 months, Monica and I continued to see each other, leading up to her graduation. Our relationship was built on quality time rather than mere physical intimacy. However, despite our bond, I found it difficult to fully commit to Monica, still haunted by memories of Leona. It all came to a head the night after Monica's graduation. "William, I've been waiting for you to move on from Leona. I hoped you would, but it's clear you're still hung up on her," Monica began, cutting off my attempts to interject. "Don't deny it. You're holding back, and we both know why." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I've accepted a job in San Antonio, and I'm moving there next week." "But I thought you were planning to work and live in St. Louis," I countered. "We could have seen each other on weekends." "I was considering that, but I can't continue like this. You're still fixated on Leona half the time, and I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick in our relationship. I won't keep going on like this. If you ever move on from Leona, come find me," Monica said firmly before leaving the next week without a chance for a proper goodbye. They say you don't realize what you've lost until it's gone, and that proved true for me. It didn't take long for me to realize how much I cared for Monica. I wasn't sure if I was ready to love her, but I definitely missed her. 3 weeks after Monica left, I penned a letter to her expressing my feelings and letting her know I missed her dearly. Instead of a written response, I received a phone call from her, which felt even more meaningful. From then on, we spoke on the phone a few times a month and exchanged letters occasionally. I suggested visiting her several times, but Monica's response remained consistent. "Have you moved on from Leona yet? Until you can honestly say yes, there's no point in us seeing each other." Our calls continued for about 2 months, but I began noticing a shift. More often than not, I would reach her voicemail and have to leave a message. When she returned my calls, I refrained from mentioning her increased absence in the evenings. I didn't feel entitled to question her. This pattern persisted for another month. Then one Friday night, feeling somewhat desperate to hear her voice, I called Monica a little late, around 11:30. I hoped to catch her rather than her answering machine. Unfortunately, I got her voicemail again. The next morning at 7 o'clock, I called again, almost feeling like a stalker by then. To my surprise, a man answered the phone. Is Monica there?" I stuttered, thrown off guard by a man answering her phone. Who was this guy? "Yeah, but she's still sleeping. If it's important, I can wake her up or take a message," he offered, his tone friendly yet irritatingly helpful. No real message, just tell her William called, and I won't bother her again," I replied curtly, my frustration mounting. "Are you sure, William? I can wake her up if you want. She needs to get up anyway. We have to shower and get dressed because I have a plane to catch," he persisted, sounding genuinely considerate. "No, it's not necessary. I doubt it would make a difference anyway. Thanks and goodbye," I snapped before hanging up. Smooth move, idiot. You should have just asked him to pass along the message. I foolishly expected Monica to call me back right away after my little outburst, but 2 weeks passed with no word from her. I had to face the truth. We were done. Just great, absolutely great. First, Leona leaves me high and dry, and now I've lost Monica too. I know it's my own fault with Monica, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. 3 weeks to the day after my last message to Monica, she called. It was 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I was still in bed nursing a hangover from the previous night's attempt to relive my college drinking days. My head was pounding when I answered the phone. What? I barked into the receiver. Well, aren't we a ray of sunshine this morning? Monica chuckled. Are you okay, William? Monica, is that you? Why are you calling me? I asked, still groggy. You don't have to bite my head off, you know. I haven't heard from you in over 2 weeks, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay, she explained. Oh hell, I'm sorry. I guess I'm hungover. No, wait, I know I'm hungover. My head is pounding, and my mouth tastes like old sweat socks, I admitted. It's okay. Now, why haven't you called? Monica inquired. I did, about 2 weeks ago, early on a Saturday morning. Your boyfriend answered the phone. I left a message for you, I replied. I never got a message, and I... Wait, my boyfriend? What do you mean, my boyfriend? Monica sounded puzzled. When was this again? It must have been on the 13th. The guy said you were still asleep, but he could wake you up. You and he had to take a shower and get him to the airport. I told him to tell you I had called. I recounted, omitting my little temper tantrum. I'm so sorry, William. I never got the message. That wasn't my boyfriend. That was my stupid brother Kevin. He's been staying with me for the last month. Wait until I get hold of him. I'll teach him not to give me messages, Monica apologized. Your brother, my mood lifted. Yeah, Kevin was staying with me while he worked on a project here. He finished his work and went back home. Okay, dummy, I thought to myself, now is the time to tell her how you feel. Enough of this friendship bullshit. You have nothing to lose but some phone calls that make you feel worse than you did before anyway. I had made a decision. Monica, I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have some time right now? I asked. Sounds serious, sure, I have all day. Go ahead, she replied. So, I spilled my guts. I told her that I didn't know how much I cared for her until she left. I told her that I had my head on straight like she said. I told her that I could truthfully say that I didn't love Leona. Finally, I said, Monica, remember you telling me that you couldn't go on the way we were? Well, that's where I'm at. I can't go on like this. If you don't want to be more than friends, then let's stop the torture. At least it's torture to me. So, what do you think? Monica was quiet for a moment and then said, I think you should come to San Antonio next weekend. I don't want to wait. I'm on my way. See you soon. I called my boss and arranged for some time off. I made the 2-hour drive to St. Louis and jumped a plane for San Antonio. Monica met me at the airport. How did you know what flight I was on? I was surprised to see her at the airport. A little research online. There are several flights from St. Louis, but this was the first one. I was going to meet each plane until you showed up, Monica informed me. The next month was wonderful. I spent weekends at Monica's place or she at mine. I found that I had moved on and was ready to commit fully to Monica. My company had a division in a suburb of San Antonio, and I was able to transfer there. I moved in with Monica, and life was good. There was some adjustment, but the transition went smoothly. Monica and I were married and started our new life together. We had only been married a short time when I saw pictures of Leona's wedding. That was the only hint of a problem in our marriage, and that was mostly in my mind. I didn't know if I should mention the story to Monica or keep quiet about it. If I said something, would she think I still had feelings for Leona? And if I said nothing, would she think I was trying to hide feelings for Leona? I put down the Sunday paper and looked at Monica, who was making breakfast. Maybe I should diffuse the situation and not let it develop into a problem. Hey babe, here's a story about Leona's wedding. I guess Tristan Brooks finally got her to tie the knot. About time he reined her in. Monica looked at me with a little smile and said, I know, I opened the paper to that story and left it for you. She almost laughed at the surprised look on my face. I wanted to see how you handled it. You passed with flying colors, by the way. Leona and our relationship were never mentioned again. That is until I received that letter 4 years after she dumped me. As I said before, what does the woman want? I opened the letter to see why she was writing to me, especially after all this time. The letter was in Leona's handwriting and read, "Dear William, it's been a while, and I understand if you're wondering why I'm reaching out after all this time. The truth is, I couldn't resist the urge any longer. Despite resisting the temptation for years, I finally had to reach out to you. When I left you, it was because I felt I had no choice. My father issued an ultimatum through Tristan. If I didn't return home, he would cut off financial support. I was too attached to my lifestyle to give up the money. Although I postponed the marriage for 2 years, I eventually decided to go through with it. Marriage hasn't changed anything. I still live life on my terms. I just have to be more cautious and discreet. Tristan is my husband in name only, but he's content with the arrangement. Being married to me ensures him a life of leisure, and he has his own discreet affairs. But my dilemma is that I've never stopped thinking about you, William. I told you when I left that I cared deeply for you, and that hasn't changed. If anything, time has only deepened my regret over my decision that day. I should have convinced you to move to St. Louis with me. We could have continued seeing each other discreetly. I'll be in San Antonio next month for a week, and thought it might be nice to catch up over lunch or dinner, maybe even take a ride in the Corvette together. What do you think? Please let me know your decision before the 21st of next month. If we're going to meet, I'll need to adjust my schedule accordingly. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Love, Leona." I was taken aback, seething with anger. After all this time, she had the audacity to reach out to me again. It confirmed what I suspected 4 years ago. She was a deceitful person who got caught by her father. There was no way I was going to entertain her request. The real question was whether I should inform Monica about it. That evening, Monica arrived home about an hour later than usual. We sat on our deck after dinner, and I handed Leona's letter to her without a word. "What's this?" Monica asked, puzzled. "Check the return address and then read the letter," I replied. As Monica glanced at the return address and started reading, her expression shifted from confusion to anger. Her face turned red with fury, signaling that she was about to unleash her wrath. She finished reading and shot me a piercing look. She was livid. "Just a moment," I interjected firmly before she could explode. "Now, read this letter." The letter read, "Dear Leona, it was truly delightful to receive your message after all these years. Regrettably, I sold a Corvette about 6 months following your departure. Nonetheless, it would be wonderful to reconnect in person. My wife, Monica, and I would be thrilled to join you for dinner and some drinks. Once you're in town, simply give us a ring, and we'll coordinate our meeting. Our contact number is provided below. We appreciate you reaching out and eagerly anticipate catching up soon. Farewell for now. Your friends, William and Monica." As Monica finished reading my letter, her face remained flushed, but this time from uncontrollable laughter. Eventually, her laughter subsided, and she leaned in to kiss me. "That's a clever way to tell her off. Quite cunning, my love. I'm proud of you, but you did make a tiny mistake," she teased. "What might that be?" I asked, thinking my approach was flawless. "I was late getting home because I had a doctor's appointment tonight," she revealed, waiting for my reaction. "So, if we were to meet her, I wouldn't be indulging in any drinks with you guys." "Not that we're planning to meet her, but why no drinking for you?" I inquired. "Pregnant women should avoid alcohol. It's not good for the baby," she explained. The rest of the evening was filled with cuddles, discussions about converting a bedroom into a nursery, and brainstorming baby names. Strangely, we never received that anticipated phone call from Leona. The second story. The beginning of my family's story. As I entered the house, my wife's excitement was palpable. She hurried over to greet me with a warm kiss before darting back into the kitchen to put the finishing touches on dinner. "I made your favorite tonight, and guess what? I have some exciting news to share," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "That's fantastic, dear," I responded with a smile. "Coincidentally, I have some big news too. Perhaps we should have a double celebration." It was Friday evening, marking the end of the work week. While she wrapped things up in the kitchen, I headed to the bedroom to freshen up and change into more relaxed attire. With tomorrow off, I eagerly anticipated spending a leisurely night with my wife, filled with intimacy and conversation about our respective news. The thrill of sharing and celebrating together filled me with anticipation. I'm Jack Martinez, and my wife is Caroline. We've been happily married for 7 years, both of us now 30 years old. Standing at 6'2" and weighing around 210 pounds, give or take a pound depending on the day, I like to think I'm in pretty good shape. While I don't consider myself a heartthrob, I've been told more than a few times that I'm above average in looks. Caroline, on the other hand, stands at 5'6" and maintains a lovely weight of 110 pounds. She's also quite fit, just like me. We're both regulars at the gym. Caroline has long blonde hair, captivating brown eyes, and a stunning figure that never fails to turn heads. Lately, I had a strong inkling about what her news might be. We'd recently embarked on the journey of starting a family. Caroline had stopped taking birth control pills a few months back, and ever since, our time in bed had seen a significant increase. Now, don't get me wrong, we weren't exactly celibate before this change. In our first year of marriage, we were at it almost every night, gradually slowing down to an average of 3 times a week thereafter. However, since Caroline went off the pill, we'd ramped up our intimacy even more. The only times we put it on hold were when I had to be out of town for work. I didn't have to travel much for work. Typically, I was at my office by 7:00 a.m. and left around 5:00 p.m. As a mechanical engineer, my schedule remained fairly consistent, with only occasional deviations for conferences or seminars, happening about once every quarter. Recently promoted to engineering manager, I now oversaw a team consisting of 5 junior engineers, 3 engineering technicians, and a couple of secretaries, along with my own personal secretary. Caroline, my wife, worked as a paralegal for a small law firm in town. Among 5 lawyers, she was one of 3 paralegals, and her schedule mirrored mine in regularity. The only changes occurred when she had to stay late due to occasional issues with significant cases. After showering and changing, I entered the kitchen just as Caroline was setting dinner on the table. It was evident she had gone the extra mile for this evening. I suspected she had taken the afternoon off to prepare. On the menu was chicken scallopini, accompanied by a delightful Caesar salad and garlic bread. To top it off, she had prepared tiramisu for dessert and even uncorked a couple of bottles of excellent Merlot to complement the meal and savor afterward. Caroline's anticipation was palpable, evident not only in the exquisite meal but also in her attire. She was adorned in one of her most attractive dresses, suggesting she anticipated a night filled with passion and excitement. Her news promised to be something truly remarkable, and I couldn't wait for our conversation later that evening. After we finished dinner and dessert, I pitched in to help Caroline clear the table and tidy up the kitchen. We topped off our wine glasses and made our way to the living room, eager to share our respective news. Seated on the couch, we engaged in the customary back and forth about who would go first. Caroline's bubbling excitement made it easy for her to volunteer. She could hardly contain herself, her happiness practically radiating from her. I half expected her news to burst out spontaneously. "We did it, sweetheart. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby," she exclaimed, her joy palpable. "That's incredible," I exclaimed, overwhelmed with happiness. Caroline flung herself into my arms, showering me with passionate kisses. As we embraced, sharing in the overwhelming joy, I couldn't wait to share my own news with her. With a beaming smile and an infectious enthusiasm, I revealed my own thrilling announcement. "I got my secretary, Eva, pregnant as well," I revealed to my wife, my excitement evident in my tone. "Since she's single and doesn't want to raise a child alone, we've decided that she'll give her baby to us to raise. It'll be like they're twins. Since you and Eva will be delivering at about the same time, they'll actually be twins in every way except for blood. And since I'm the father, custody won't be an issue, especially since she's willing to sign off on me taking custody. All she wants is to be involved as more of a favored aunt to the child. We'll probably need to explain it to him or her when they're old enough to understand and accept it, but that shouldn't be a problem. I eagerly awaited my wife's response, but instead of the happiness I anticipated, I was met with a severe lack of joy. In fact, she appeared angry. It puzzled me. Here I was, sharing news of our family expanding, and yet her reaction was one of extreme hostility. I was genuinely taken aback. Her distressed expression gave me pause, but I felt she needed to know the full extent of the situation, hoping it might turn her upset back into happiness. Her initial ultrasound also indicated that she was having twins. I continued, attempting to maintain my excitement despite my wife's unsettling reaction. Although it's still too early to determine the sex, there's a good likelihood that at least one of them is a girl. Maybe it'll be one of each. Just imagine, you can have the little girl you've always wanted, and I can have the little boy as well. Whichever one you're having will be a bonus. We'll instantly have the big family you've always wanted. However, instead of the joyous response I anticipated, my wife's anger only seemed to intensify. I couldn't comprehend what was happening, and then, like a sudden explosion, her pent-up fury erupted. "You sneaky cheater. You cheated on me with that prostitute from your office," she accused, her voice trembling with rage. "What the hell were you thinking when you did that? Do you really think I'm gonna raise that bitch's kids? Are you out of your mind?" The situation rapidly spiraled downhill from there. For the next half hour, she unleashed a torrent of insults, hurling every imaginable insult in the English language at me. It seemed like she even invented a few new ones on the spot. This was far from the scenario I had envisioned. It became increasingly clear that my hopes for a night of passionate lovemaking were rapidly dwindling. Nonetheless, I remained undeterred. "Sweetie, how about we retreat to the bedroom and celebrate our shared good news?" I suggested, attempting to salvage the evening. I'm confident that after a night of passionate lovemaking, we'll gain a clearer understanding of what our lives will be like with 3 new additions to our loving family. To my surprise, not only did she vehemently reject my proposal, but she had the audacity to attempt to banish me from sleeping in my own bed. If she didn't want to share a bed with me, she could find another place to sleep. Eventually, consumed by rage, she stormed out to the spare bedroom, clutching her pillows. I was genuinely bewildered by her behavior. Nevertheless, feeling justified in my actions, I rolled over and slept peacefully for the remainder of the night. The following morning, my attempts to coax my wife into our bed were met with continued resistance. She remained irrationally angry with me, and her refusal to communicate only added to my confusion. Realizing that her emotions were beyond my influence, I opted to seize the opportunity presented by the pleasant weather and headed out for a round of golf. I met some cool people there. One guy, his wife, and her sister. With the wife's sister, we bonded really well, and in less than 3 hours, we got to know each other from a new side, if you know what I mean. Upon arriving home, I was taken aback to find my garage door opener malfunctioning. Puzzled by the unexpected glitch, I investigated further, checking the batteries to no avail. Deciding to approach the front door instead, I was met with an even more perplexing sight: several suitcases stacked neatly on the porch. Despite my confusion, I shrugged off the oddity and attempted to unlock the front door, only to discover it securely fastened. While this wasn't entirely surprising, given that I typically left through the garage in the mornings, what struck me as strange was the fact that my key failed to fit the locks. Upon closer inspection, I realized they appeared to be brand new, a detail that Caroline had never mentioned. Determined to gain access to the house, I set aside my bewilderment and focused on finding a solution. Feeling hot and weary from the day's activities, I retrieved my sawzall from the truck and swiftly took action, cutting through the door around the doorknob and deadbolt. With the obstruction removed, I made a mental note to replace the door and proceeded inside, eager for a much-needed shower and change of clothes. Upon entering the house, I was met with yet another tirade from Caroline. She mentioned something about me moving out and my clothes being packed in the suitcases outside. Feeling puzzled, I retrieved the suitcases and brought them back indoors, sorting through my belongings and returning them to their rightful places in the bedroom. As Caroline's rant escalated, she began accusing me of infidelity. I couldn't fathom where she was getting these ideas. Sure, there was that one time with Janice, but it was just a brief fling. Well, okay, maybe more than brief, but it was a one-off occurrence. I hardly knew Janice. Attempting to defuse the situation, I suggested we take a shower together, but Caroline vehemently refused. It dawned on me that she might be grappling with some underlying psychological issues that needed addressing. Resolving to broach the topic of counseling later that evening, I proceeded to shower, hoping to wash away the tension of the day. After a refreshing shower, I returned to the bedroom to dress, only to discover Caroline packing her belongings into the empty suitcases. Inquiring about her sudden actions, she retorted that since I refused to leave, she would instead. Apparently, while I was showering, she had contacted her sister, arranging to stay with her. My attempt to rationalize her behavior by attributing it to pregnancy hormones was met with vehement rejection. Despite my certainty that her pregnancy was impacting her reactions, she angrily dismissed my explanation. I reassured myself that once she gave birth and my secretary's twins came home, she would embrace motherhood with grace. Confused by her sudden departure, I watched as she left an hour later, leaving me bewildered and unsure of what to do next. A couple of days later, I made the decision to move Eva into my house. With her pregnancy and Caroline's departure, it felt like the right thing to do. After all, the twins were mine, and Eva needed support during this time. However, my plans were abruptly interrupted when I was served with divorce papers a week later. Caroline was seeking ownership of the house, 18 years of maintenance, alimony for those unfamiliar with the term, 90% of our savings and investments, and $1,500 a month in child support. In essence, she was fully enforcing our prenuptial agreement, particularly the clause pertaining to infidelity. Yes, I was well aware of its existence. 3 months later. What the hell? My wife Caroline's voice pierced the tense atmosphere of the lawyer's office, marking our first meeting to discuss our impending divorce. As we sat across from each other, I couldn't help but acknowledge that Caroline had a potent tool at her disposal, our meticulously crafted prenuptial agreement, designed to make infidelity sting deeply. And with ample evidence of my indiscretions, she had every reason to wield it mercilessly. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but question her resolve. "Are you really sure you want to go down this path, Caroline?" I inquired, hoping for a glimmer of hesitation. Her response was swift and unforgiving. "You cheated on me. You got your secretary pregnant and had the nerve to think I would agree to raise her children," she retorted, her words laced with indignation and betrayal. "Caroline, right here, right now, I'm presenting you with a one-time offer," I declared, my tone resolute. "We call off the divorce, reconcile, and raise all 3 children together as our own. We leave the past behind and commit to each other once more. These 3 babies will be solely ours. Yes, Eva will play a role as the favored aunt to the twins, but that's as far as it goes. You'll be the loving mother to all 3, and I'll be the devoted father. And who knows, maybe we'll even have 1 or 2 more. The decision is yours, yes or no." "Damn you. I'm not going to raise any of your children with that woman," Caroline spat back, her anger palpable. I exchanged a knowing look with my lawyer, affirming our understanding. Fortunately for me, I had retained the most formidable, ruthless, and determined legal representation money could buy. While it might seem as though I'm painted as the villain, eager for my comeuppance, hold on to your judgment. It's about to get interesting. My lawyer unfurled her briefcase with a grin reminiscent of a barracuda poised for a feeding frenzy. "Since your client has declined my client's generous offer, here is our new proposal," she announced, sliding the papers across the table. It took a few moments for Caroline and her lawyer to read and comprehend the document. That's when Caroline erupted as described earlier. As their smug expressions morphed into panic, I could swear Agata, my lawyer, practically salivated with anticipation. Yes, she was truly ruthless. Caroline's lawyer turned to her, his expression one of sheer panic. "DNA testing," Caroline stammered. "Absolutely," I confirmed. With another nod at Agata, she produced an audio recorder and placed it on the table, her finger hovering over the record button. "So, how are you making sure it's going to be my kid and not the Cox?" The voice on the recording belonged to Martin Hill, a lawyer at the firm where Caroline worked. "No problem," Caroline's voice responded confidently. "You look enough like my husband that he'll never know he's raising your child." "Good, just as long as he raises my kid right. I have no intention of having to pay for or deal with kids myself. I do like the idea of having a kid to eventually pass along my inheritance to, but it'll have to be after they've become an adult. When the kid turns 18, we can let them know who their real father is. That way, I won't have to pay a dime to raise them. Trust me, Jack will never know until we tell your child in 18 years. Then it'll be too late. He and I will have a few more children together by then, and he won't be able to do anything about it without being completely screwed." "So, you're sure your husband won't find out about us?" Martin Hill's voice echoed through the recording. "We've been having an affair for the last 3 years, and he hasn't had a clue. You look enough like him that any kid we have will resemble him closely enough that he'll never suspect it isn't his. We'll be fine," Caroline's voice replied confidently. The expression on Caroline's face when the recording played was priceless. Agata then passed over a motion to have Caroline's fetus DNA tested and another motion to sue Martin Hill for child support, requesting $2,000 a month. Given his success as an attorney, it seemed a reasonable ask. "All right, since your client rejected the last proposal, here's the new one. It'll require a post-nuptial agreement signed by both parties. The divorce proceedings will cease, and the couple will remain married until the last child graduates from high school at a minimum. If they both agree, they can choose to continue their marriage. The postnup will retain terms from the prenup, but with a few adjustments. Firstly, the marriage will become open, allowing my client to pursue other relationships as long as he informs his wife beforehand. The same applies to the wife. Any children conceived thereafter will be solely the responsibility of the married couple. However, any children conceived accidentally, regardless of whether carried to full term or aborted, will trigger the terms of the postnup," Agata concluded. I observed as Caroline's complexion drained of color, her shock palpable as her affair was laid bare. Agata's smile took on a predatory edge as she pressed forward. "In the event your client rejects this proposal, we are fully prepared to enforce the prenuptial agreement on our end," Agata stated firmly. Her affair commenced nearly 3 years prior to my client's indiscretion. In fact, he only embarked on his affair after meticulously documenting his wife's betrayal and her intention to conceive another man's child. Should she pursue divorce, she should anticipate being left destitute, without a home or financial security. Furthermore, all her acquaintances will be provided with evidence, videotapes depicting her engagement with a man who is not her husband. We are prepared to take drastic measures to ensure her complete ruin." Caroline glanced at me, signaling her readiness for me to speak. "Caroline, you schemed for me to raise another man's child. While the baby inside you is innocent in this deceit, I refuse to bear the responsibility for your actions. However, I am willing to accept the child into our home as a stepchild, provided your lover assumes financial responsibility. He will cover monthly child support, health insurance, medical expenses, and education. Though I doubt he'll seek visitation, it will be available if desired. He will also fund the child's college education. That is the cost of his actions. He may have claimed to shun parenthood, but he will now bear its weight. As for you, your consequence for betrayal is to raise my children as your own. They'll be yours in every way except biologically. Only those in this room and Eva will know the truth. You found it amusing to have me raise another man's child. Now you'll find irony in raising another woman's children. You'll also welcome Eva into our home when she desires to visit the children. That is your penance. You dare to seek divorce over my infidelity while carrying on a lengthy affair yourself. How hypocritical. My affair only ensued after uncovering your betrayal. I heard your plans to have another man's child while ensuring it wasn't mine. Eva was willing to bear my children, provided she wasn't left to raise them alone. 18 and a half years later. You mean Aunt Eva is really, Diana's voice faltered. But what about Uncle Nat? Laura interjected. Yes, Eva had twins. Diana was born a minute before Laura. Donnie, Caroline's son, came into the picture 3 days earlier. There were more than a few surprised faces when we introduced the triplets to our friends and family. Eventually, everyone came to accept it, though there were some curious remarks about where Diana and Laura's red hair originated. Those pesky recessive genes. No, your Uncle Nat came later. Your Aunt Eva became pregnant while she was single, and she believed that it would be best for you two to be raised by a married couple. Since we were close friends, I agreed to adopt you both, as she wasn't in a position to raise you alone at that time. By the time she met and married your Uncle Nat, it would have been too difficult to change things. Now that you both know the truth, understand that your mom and I love you just as much as if you were our biological children. Nothing has changed in that regard. Also, remember that your aunt and uncle have their own family. You'll always hold a special place in their hearts, but that doesn't alter the fact that we're all family here, I concluded. They were intelligent kids. Would they comprehend? Did we truly need to disclose? Perhaps, perhaps not. There were valid points on both sides. Ultimately, we decided they should know, so we shared the truth. We also revealed to Donnie that I wasn't his biological father. That was a different conversation. He never crossed paths with the scoundrel. The scoundrel attempted to contest the paternity suit, but DNA doesn't lie. He tried to evade payment, but judges tend to frown upon such defiance. They also have the means to enforce their rulings through sheriff's deputies, who can pay unwelcome visits to individuals at their homes and workplaces. As for the notion of an open marriage, I did have a few more encounters with Janice and Eva, and I dated for about a year until she met Nat. Regarding Caroline, I'm fairly certain she never strayed. I kept a close watch, though. Once Eva and I concluded our affair, I refrained from pursuing others. I presumed Caroline had learned from the experience, and I made it clear I'd resume if I detected any signs of infidelity. As far as I could discern, she remained faithful, and I monitored closely. Moreover, she endeavored to foster a bond where I relied solely on her, which worked both ways. Martin Hill vanished shortly after Jack's 18th birthday. He had already established a college fund for Jack, but despite our offer of visitation, Martin showed no interest. Speculation circulated that he relocated to the East Coast, though a more reliable rumor placed him just 5 miles beyond the coastline. Of course, this particular tidbit remained confined to a select few. Patience was my virtue when it came to settling scores. I couldn't allow him to evade child support and college fund payments. As for Caroline and me, it's been 19 years since our turbulent ordeal. I diligently conducted my investigations and found no evidence of further indiscretions. Remarkably, she evolved into a devoted wife and mother. Contemplating early retirement once the kids depart the nest seems plausible. Some might deem me weak for forgiving her, but what good would scorching her yield? Perhaps Eva and I could have pursued a relationship, but it's irrelevant now. What matters is I wasn't ensnared in raising another man's child. Though I played the role of father, I viewed it differently. Martin footed the bill for raising him, while I seized the chance to ensure he was raised with integrity, steering clear of becoming another scoundrel. Furthermore, by remaining with Caroline, I ensured our 3 children were nurtured in a loving environment with both parents, a triumph surpassing external judgment. Epilogue. It's been another 10 years. This is my confession. I'll be honest, as I sit here and reflect on my actions in the past, I can't help but feel regret. Years later, I realized that adultery is an insidious path, fraught with pain and consequences that reverberate far beyond the moment of the careless act. Even innocent people can suffer because of it. In my case, children. My affair with Janice and the subsequent exposure of Caroline's betrayal shook the foundations of our marriage, leaving scars that took years to heal. Looking back, I realized the folly of my actions, the selfishness that blinded me to the pain I had caused my wife and family. Yes, my wife committed sin too, but I speak for myself now. I am haunted by the realization that my momentary weakness caused irreparable damage to the trust and intimacy we once shared. Caroline's forgiveness and our eventual reconciliation were not without difficulties. The road to rebuilding our relationship was long and difficult, marked by moments of doubt and uncertainty. But I guess it had to be. Our children, who are grown and thriving on their own, make me happy and give me inner strength. Despite all the turmoil of raising them, they are thriving, their spirits unbroken by their parents' mistakes. I am overwhelmed with pride as I watch their accomplishments, and their laughter is a balm to the wounds of the past. As I look to the future, I can only hope that they will learn from my mistakes, that they will cherish the sacred vows of marriage and honor the trust of their partners. May they never succumb to the temptations that led me astray. May they forge relationships built on honesty, respect, and unwavering devotion. In the end, I am grateful for the second chance I've been given, for the opportunity to right the wrongs of my past and embrace the blessings of my present. And though the scars of my transgressions may never fully fade, I take solace in the knowledge that redemption is possible, that love, true and unconditional, has the power to conquer even the darkest of sins. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon. The third story. My primary concern throughout my life has been my physical appearance. I don't fit the typical image of a knight in shining armor that many women dream of. Standing at an average height, I'm a simple guy with minimal body fat. My features, like my broad nose and deep-set, squinty eyes, don't exactly add to my charm. Though I'm fortunate to have all my teeth and hair, it doesn't elevate my overall appeal. Working as a heavy equipment operator, I keep my sandy hair trimmed short for practicality. It's easier to maintain and keeps out of my face. Despite my perceived shortcomings, I consider myself lucky to have found a woman to share my life with. Grace, while not conventionally stunning, was perfectly beautiful to me. Standing at 5'2", she was petite compared to me. She embraced my quirks and teased me affectionately, creating an atmosphere of comfort and acceptance in our relationship. We tied the knot early in life and were blessed with 2 children, 16-year-old Dave and his younger sister Monica. Thankfully, they inherited more of their mother's looks than mine. Both kids were bright and well-behaved, filling me with pride as a father and adding to the contentment of our family life. I was employed by my Uncle Henry, working as a heavy equipment operator in what amounted to a family-run enterprise. While Uncle Henry was the one overseeing operations, the rest of us received salaries and put in as many hours as possible. At the end of each year, any profits not earmarked for new equipment were divvied up among the family members, a setup that suited us well. Meanwhile, Grace found employment at a small company specializing in property appraisals for banks and investment firms. Although she wasn't directly involved in the appraisal process, she handled various clerical tasks such as typing, filing, and data entry. Life was comfortable, and I should have been content with that. However, it was a seemingly insignificant incident that sparked a chain of unsettling thoughts. I happened to notice what looked like a hickey on my wife's neck. Normally, I would have playfully teased her about it, but this time, for some inexplicable reason, I held back. I knew I hadn't caused it, and it could have been a bug bite or an ingrown hair, but her efforts to conceal it with makeup at home only fueled my unease. While I could understand her desire to cover it up when going out, I couldn't shake the question of why she felt the need to do so at home. If Grace was seeing someone else, it would have to be during the day. She never ventured out alone at night, and I was always by her side when she did. I was certain she wasn't meeting anyone at our house. The thought gnawed at me for an entire week, even after the love bite had faded, leaving only the lingering memory. Our intimate life remained intact. While perhaps I wasn't as romantic as I could have been, I made efforts, buying her flowers unexpectedly, never forgetting her birthday or our anniversary. We dined out regularly, caught shows or movies when time allowed, and annually embarked on family vacations to special destinations. I valued her deeply as both a wife and a companion. Yet here I was driving myself mad over a trivial red mark on her neck. With work slowing down, Uncle Henry had no qualms about granting me a few days off. Unsure of what I was seeking or what I would do, I resolved to shadow Grace and see if anything transpired. Borrowing a car from a colleague, I armed myself with a crossword puzzle book and began my surveillance. For 2 days, nothing of note occurred. I trailed her to work, joined her for lunch, and returned home with her. I started feeling foolish until the 3rd day. Grace emerged from her office for lunch slightly earlier than usual. Instead of heading towards her car, she strolled around to the side of the building. As if on cue, a white 4-door company car appeared from the rear, and Grace slipped into the passenger seat. It seems she was off to lunch with a coworker. It was a deviation from the routine of the past 2 days, but nothing overly alarming. I trailed them effortlessly, only to have my worst suspicions confirmed. The white car pulled into the parking lot of a shabby motel near the interstate ramp. I recognized the man as one of the appraisers Grace worked alongside, Luke something. He already possessed a key. They entered the room with a practiced ease, drawing the curtains and shutting the blinds behind them. Luke, considerably younger than Grace, possessed a striking appearance that added to my dismay. Regrettably, I hadn't planned beyond this point. Uncertain of my next move, my emotions overwhelmed reason. I contemplated waiting until Grace returned home that evening to confront her, but impatience won out. Exiting my car, I made my way to the motel door. The building, an older establishment, featured wooden door frames that, despite any safety latches, seemed susceptible to a well-placed shove. Roughly 10 minutes had passed since they entered the room. I halted a passing housekeeper, urgently instructing her to dial 911. Initially bewildered by my request, she promptly reached for her phone. I decided to grant them another 5 minutes before considering more forceful action, though my patience waned after only 2. I crashed into the door with all my might, using my right shoulder as a battering ram. The safety lock buckled under the force, causing the hinges to rip out of the wall. The door thundered to the ground with a deafening crash, startling Grace and her lover. They lay naked in the bed, and before he could even react, I seized him by the neck. The sight of my wife entangled with another man sent me into a rage beyond comprehension. It was his fault, knowing she was married, and hers for the same reason. Fury consumed me entirely. My wife had never witnessed such violence from me before. Luke faltered under the initial onslaught, unable to move or catch his breath. I took my time, methodically delivering blow after blow. Amidst the chaos, Grace pleaded for me to stop, even attempting to intervene at one point. In the heat of the moment, my elbow inadvertently struck her mouth as I recoiled from a strike. She went flying across the room, and then everything went dark. When I came to, I found myself handcuffed in the back of a police cruiser. EMCs wheeled Luke out on a gurney, and Grace stood by the ambulance, her lip being tended to with a motel sheet wrapped around her. As she caught sight of me in the cruiser, she burst into tears. A female police officer escorted her back into the room as the police car pulled away from the motel parking lot. I didn't contest the charges or request a lawyer or trial. Justice was swift, and my actions were deemed premeditated since I had instructed the maid to call 911 before breaking down the door. But the specifics of the verdict mattered little to me. I was handed a 2-year jail sentence. Before heading off to the state lockup, my brother Martin was the only one who managed to see me. He pledged to visit again once things had calmed down. Life in my new surroundings proved relatively uneventful, particularly once word spread about the circumstances that landed me there. It took 10 days before Martin made another appearance. "Walter, I thought about bringing you some cigarettes, but then I remembered you don't smoke," he joked, attempting to lighten the mood. "Enough with the jokes, Martin. What's going on at home? Nobody's filled me in, and all I get here are rumors and nonsense," I pressed. "It's about as bad as it could be. The kids and the rest of the family are devastated. Grace has been holed up in the house since it all went down. Dave and Monica have been staying with Mom and Dad, but they're planning to return home later this week. As for Grace, she's not talking to anyone. Jane, her sister, tried to visit, but Grace wouldn't let her in." "Is Grace communicating with the kids?" I inquired. "Not a chance. They tried reaching out, but she won't budge. I doubt she'll open up about what really happened to anyone," Martin replied. "I assume she's not going to work," I continued. She hasn't stepped out of the house. It won't be long before she runs out of food, Martin remarked. And who's taking care of the bills? I probed further. I'm not sure. I'll ask Dave to look into it later this week. Monica's determined to get back home, one way or another, Martin explained. What about the guy? I asked. His name's Luke Rivera. He's still in the hospital and might be there for a couple more weeks, Martin answered. What? All I did was give him a rough beating. Why's he still in the hospital? I reacted. You really did a number on him, Walter. Multiple injuries and fractures. He's on a liquid diet and has some eye issues, Martin replied. I guess I lost control, I conceded. It seems that way, Martin agreed. I think I need to talk to the kids. Can you bring them next time you visit? I requested. Sure thing, Martin agreed before leaving. After Martin departed, I compiled a list of tasks based on what he told me about Grace's situation. I felt a sense of responsibility to ensure the household continued to function smoothly, at least until the kids finished school. 5 days later, Dave and Monica arrived, sans Martin. Where's your uncle? I inquired. He had to work. I picked up Mom's car from her office, and we decided to drive up here ourselves, Dave answered, visibly proud of himself. Why was Mom's car at the office? I questioned. It's been there since the day you were arrested. Mom never retrieved it. She hasn't driven or left the house since, Dave explained. Is she okay? I inquired, concern etched on my face. Monica shook her head, her gaze lifting. No, she's not talking and just seems lost. She won't respond to questions and refuses to answer the phone. The answering machine is full. I tried to handle as many calls as I could, mainly from relatives. There were even reporters trying to get through, she relayed. Do you two want to stay with your grandparents, or will you be okay at home? I asked, worried about their well-being. I think we'll manage, Dad. We just need to establish some sort of routine, Dave assured me confidently. I felt a sense of relief seeing my children taking charge of the situation. Over the next hour, we brainstormed various strategies for managing their situation, and I offered my assistance where possible. Still receiving my salary, I proposed setting up autopay for all the utility bills. I advised Monica to retrieve her mother's ATM card, enabling them to access cash and use it as a debit card for other expenses. Dave agreed to handle yard work and vehicle maintenance, while also assisting Monica with household chores and cooking. Apparently, Grace was still capable of caring for herself, but had withdrawn from social interaction entirely. Monica mentioned her mother's newfound compulsion for cleanliness and home organization, though it remained unclear whether this was a positive or negative development. Before departing, I instructed Monica to convey to her mother my desire to discuss what had transpired. Monica expressed doubts about Grace's willingness to engage, but she promised to make the effort. Despite Monica and Dave's persistent attempts, Grace never visited me in prison, nor did she call or write. Their efforts to reach her proved futile, even with the involvement of Grace's sister, Jane. 6 months elapsed with no clarity or explanation from my wife. Regular visits from Dave, Monica, and Martin provided some solace, although a few colleagues taking a day off to jest at my expense added a peculiar twist to the routine. Within a fortnight of Luke Rivera's injury, his wife served him with divorce papers. He found himself in a dire financial predicament, burdened with child support, alimony, and mortgage payments. Following his discharge from the hospital, Luke was transferred to a rehabilitation center. As his medical bills surpassed his insurance coverage, he opted to sue me, a legal labyrinth I struggled to comprehend. Fortunately, Uncle Henry intervened. In a matter of days, our company lawyer countered with lawsuits against Rivera for alienation of affection and against the company where Rivera and Grace were employed. The lawyer's adept maneuvers led to a sudden dissolution of all legal proceedings on both sides. Though I didn't receive any compensation, I also avoided any financial liabilities. 3 months later, the domestic scene remained unchanged. Dave had completed his schooling and enlisted in the Air Force, set to depart in a month's time. With Monica now possessing her driver's license, they felt confident that his absence wouldn't present logistical hurdles. However, Grace persisted in her refusal to answer phone calls and remained confined to the house. While she wasn't directly causing issues for Monica, the status quo seemed unsustainable. Grace had begun flatly refusing Monica's attempts to facilitate communication between us or to arrange visits. Following Dave's departure, Monica started visiting me alone, occasionally accompanied by Martin. Grace's sister Jane made a solitary visit, though her purpose remained a mystery to me. Approaching nearly a year into my sentence, my wife had withdrawn completely, refusing to engage with me or anyone else. I dedicated countless hours to pondering our predicament. Grace never extended an apology, nor sought forgiveness, nor provided any explanation for her infidelity. She offered no ideas on how to mend our relationship or rectify the situation. In her eyes, nothing had gone awry, and her disregard for my feelings made me feel insignificant and dismissed. It seemed she deemed me unworthy of her time or consideration, leaving me feeling like an inconsequential nuisance, a mere annoyance to be rid of once Walter's problem was resolved. These thoughts consumed me, igniting an inner rage that simmered beneath the surface. Luke Rivera had completed his rehabilitation and settled into an efficiency apartment near his workplace. According to Martin, he walked with a limp and exhibited a twitch in his right eye, evoking a twinge of sympathy from me, until Monica shared unsettling news. During Grace's shower, Monica sought out Midol from her mother's purse and stumbled upon a prepaid cell phone concealed at the bottom. It contained only one programmed number. Monica meticulously recorded both the phone's number and the stored contact. The revelation was disconcerting. While reconciliation with Grace seemed increasingly unlikely given our circumstances, the notion of her maintaining contact with Rivera ignited a surge of fury within me. 2 weeks later, an announcement came: 127 of us would receive early release, and my name was among them. I had navigated my time in jail without incident, secured employment for my release, and carried the status of a first-time offender. It felt like an extraordinary stroke of luck. Martin and Monica arrived to fetch me, and I made the decision to reside at my parents' home for a while, giving Grace time to adjust to my presence. However, this precaution turned out to be unnecessary. Grace had vanished. For the first time in a year, she left the confines of our house without a word or a note, taking most of her belongings with her. It spared me from confronting her about her infidelity again, or rather, she avoided facing me. I looked forward to hearing her explanation, although I doubted she would offer one, given her previous silence on the matter. I also learned that Luke Rivera had abruptly quit his job that same week, which struck me as intriguing. Rather than staying with my parents, I opted to move back into the house with Monica. She seemed relieved to have me home, particularly since she had acquired a steady boyfriend in my absence. However, this also meant I spent my evenings alone. Surprisingly, I found myself missing the camaraderie of my cellmates. Any companionship was preferable to solitude. Returning to work within the week, I slipped back into my routine seamlessly, as if I had never left. Feeling indebted to Uncle Henry and the family, I committed myself to putting in extra hours, a commitment that was readily accepted. Strangely, I discovered that my taste for beer had diminished over the past year. Hard liquor had never appealed to me, so I found myself indulging in Coke and iced tea instead. Despite some teasing from my colleagues, I remained steadfast in my choices, impervious to peer pressure. The nights were the hardest, filled with thoughts of Grace and Luke Rivera. They made a mockery of me. I didn't even know Rivera, yet the treatment I received from my wife was undeserved. I had never mistreated her, never resorted to physical or verbal abuse. I had always shown her respect and affection. I had done nothing to warrant her disdain. Yet it seemed she didn't hate me. She simply felt nothing at all, discarding me like an old slipper without a second thought. It was a deeply humiliating experience. Marcy did her best to offer support, but there was little she could do to alleviate my pain. I was glad she had found companionship, particularly after the challenges she faced caring for her mother the previous year. I wanted to give her all the time she needed to recover. Meanwhile, I endeavored to conceal my depression, whether at home or at work. Immersing myself in work helped to distract me from thoughts of Grace. By the time I returned home, exhaustion often granted me respite, though not always. One Sunday afternoon, I resolved to visit Jane, Grace's younger sister. Divorced with 2 young children, she had shown me kindness by visiting me during my time in prison, though I couldn't fathom why. Sometimes I wondered if a warmer reception from me might have led to further visits. "Walter, how nice to see you. I heard you were back home. Come on in. Would you like coffee or a beer?" Jane greeted me warmly as I entered. "Coffee would be great," I replied, following her to the kitchen. "I suppose I know why you're here. I may not have much information, but I'll assist however I can," Jane offered as she set 2 steaming cups on the table. "The biggest question you probably won't be able to answer is why," I admitted, sinking into a chair opposite her. "You're right, Walter. I can't help you there." I tried asking her multiple times, in different ways, but she either ignored me or changed the subject, Jane explained. "I thought she wasn't speaking to you," I remarked. "She wouldn't even see me until a week ago. Then suddenly, she wanted to talk," Jane revealed. A brief silence settled between us, Jane seeming cautious yet willing to offer what information she could. "Jane, why did you visit me at Gradderford?" I asked, recalling her unexpected appearance during my incarceration. "I don't know. I felt Grace had wronged you somehow, and I didn't think you deserved that. But you didn't seem too pleased to see me, so I didn't return," Jane explained. "Sorry about that. I was still hurting and didn't know how to react. I guess I was a bit oversensitive," I admitted. "Other than what I read in the papers, I still don't know what happened," Jane sighed. I chuckled softly, setting my coffee down. "It's simple. She cheated. I caught them, and I dealt with it. End of story. Except you spent a year in jail," Jane pointed out. "I like to think of it as a vacation. Better than one of those damn cruises," I joked, but neither of us found much humor in the situation. "What are you really here for, Walter?" Jane asked, cutting through the tension. "Where is she?" I inquired bluntly, hoping for a straightforward answer. "Reno," Jane replied, surprising me with her candor. "Grace came to see me to discuss my divorce. I couldn't provide the answers she was seeking," Jane added, offering a glimpse into Grace's recent actions. "Why?" I pressed for more insight. "She's seeking a divorce that will allow her to sever ties with you completely, without any direct contact or interaction. I informed her that such an arrangement isn't feasible here. She seemed disappointed. Initially hesitant about Nevada due to residency requirements, she ultimately saw it as her only option. Her employer has a branch office in Reno, and the man she's with, Luke something, managed to secure a transfer there. She plans to file for divorce as soon as she meets the residency criteria," Jane explained. It all clicked into place, though I didn't relish the clarity. I couldn't fathom why she didn't initiate the divorce while I was in jail. I would have gladly signed the papers upon receiving them. Her delay seemed to have backfired. What did I do wrong, Jane? I posed that question to my sister as she left. She simply smirked and exited without offering an answer, Jane recounted. I suppose she decided I wasn't attractive enough. I wish she'd realized that before we married, I mused bitterly. Then you wouldn't have had Dave and Marcy, Jane reminded gently. A faint smile tugged at my lips. True. Walter, my husband, was handsome, but he was a scoundrel. Attractiveness isn't reason enough to marry a man. I won't make that mistake again, Jane asserted, her voice firm with resolve. I suppose I'll have to look for a divorcee who used to have a handsome husband. Maybe I'll have better luck next time, I remarked foolishly, only realizing the stupidity of my words once they left my lips. Flustered, I hastily stood up and thanked Jane for the coffee and conversation. It dawned on me why she had visited me at Gradderford. It seemed I wasn't just unattractive. I was also a bit slow on the uptake. As I departed, Jane appeared slightly embarrassed, and I felt a pang of remorse. To distract myself, I booked a week-long Caribbean cruise and gave the ticket to Martin as a gift. Being unmarried, I knew he would relish the trip, especially with my covering the expenses. In return, I borrowed his car, preferring to keep him in the dark about my intentions. It took me 3 days to drive to Reno. Upon arrival, I located a vacant bank repo house just east of Sparks and easily arranged for Luke Rivera to visit and conduct an appraisal. He arrived equipped with his clipboard and tape measure. 30 minutes later, he found himself in the trunk of Uncle Martin's car, bound for the east. About 30 miles outside Winnemucca, I found a secluded turnoff that suited my purpose. I wasn't sure where the dirt road led, but I only needed the first mile. Though Luke had been breathing when I stashed him in the trunk, he apparently decided to cease at some point during the journey. It was regrettable, as I had hoped for further conversation. Opting for a desolate ravine with rocky terrain and rugged vegetation, I relieved him of his watch, wallet, and cell phone before disposing of the body. Perhaps someone would stumble upon him eventually, but not until the local wildlife had finished with him. Continuing my journey eastward, I found myself feeling somewhat vindicated, though it was a sensation I hadn't anticipated. I'd never considered myself vengeful, but apparently I had it in me. Stopping at a casino in Elko, I discreetly left Luke's wallet in the men's room, confident that someone would stumble upon it and make good use of the credit cards. With no report filed for a missing wallet, no one would likely flag any unauthorized transactions. As for the watch, it held no particular value, so I discarded it in a nearby trash bin. Crossing into Utah, I resolved to call Jane once I reached home. Perhaps it wouldn't lead to much, but at least I could enjoy a nice meal with her at a restaurant. Starting to feel a sense of satisfaction with myself, the ringing of my cell phone interrupted my thoughts. The caller ID displayed the same number Marcy had provided. It seemed I was about to have a conversation with my wife after all. "Luke, where the hell are you? Luke, are you there? Answer me," came her frantic voice. My unmistakable gravelly voice would give me away instantly. "I'm sorry, you have the wrong number," I responded, feeling a pang of guilt. I listened for a brief moment, just enough to catch my wife's despairing words, "Oh God, no." Without hesitation, I tossed the cell phone out of the car window. In a few days, I'd be back home. I could only hope Martin was making the most of my vacation. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.